JCIDA meeting for April 4th, 2019. Privilege of the floor. And everybody received the minutes from our March 7th meeting. Any additions or corrections to those?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to accept.
Second.
Second.
Favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Treasurer's report.
Page 5 of your packet, your balance sheet, in total current assets are down about 11,000. We kind of have an uptick in unrestricted and a slight downtick in balance. Everything else is really neutral. Total assets are down just under 20,000 from the prior month. Total current liabilities, are up about 15,000 from the prior month. The fund balance is down about 34,000 from the prior month. Page 6 of the packet. So our break-even target is about 85,000 per month in revenue. We've exceeded that, but most of it is the one-time charges don't have divided by 12 yet. So at this point, if you were to take the one-time charges out, which do count, we're really only achieving about 16 or so thousand per month of additional revenue on top of RCI, convergence, and all the other things, which do count. So they count towards the total. That is increased 4,000 from prior months, so we are seeing some additional small revenue streams coming in, but I stress small, they're not going to overcome the total revenue target that we hopefully will get close to achieving by the end of the year. Operational expenses, break-even target is 90,000, 90.5 thousand per month. We're actually just over that, again, because the RCI expenses is skewing the data because it's not divided by 12 yet. So if you take RCI out, we're really under. So I think the operational expenses seem to be well in check, that we should not exceed them, provided bad debt doesn't come into play. And that's a very significant number. That if that maintains a zero status, we will do very well. Same projection I gave last month. It looks like we should get close to 900,000 in revenue. It looks like we could be at or below 1 million in expenses, so approximately 100,000 loss, which is kind of what the report shows now. Again, it's all conjecture. I don't have a crystal ball. If I did, I wouldn't be here. I'd be living somewhere else, having won a lot of money in the stock market or lottery. Pages, you can skip page 7, page 8, a balance sheet. Quick assets are up about 11,000 from prior month. The receivables are down about 21,000, and our sort of that grant thing, the miscellaneous at the end is kind of neutral. So in total, current assets are down about 11,000 from prior month. Total assets are down just under 20,000 from prior month. The total current liabilities are up about 15,500. On page 9, our total capital is down about 35,000. We can skip through all the way to page 18 of our report, top of the page, yay, we are done with Metro, even though it shows it there.
That shows the cash coming in.
But they're both paid.
It's all gone.
So we're, big exclamation point there, we done, and
Yep.
it won't show up on next month to 0. So great effort to all involved. I guess it's the developer we should thank more so than, not to minimize any efforts from staff, but it's not like you wrote the check.
No, that's right.
You earned it.
Paved the way.
Revolving loan fund, we're in a good situation there. We're basically at status quo. There just seems to be a small delay, but it's not terrible.
No.
It's less than 1% of the total receivables for a revolving loan, and so we're there. Micro enterprise, excuse me. Again, it's sort of status quo from where we were last month. A very small amount is with 1 month behind. Again, it's significantly lower than 1% of total.
And we did receive payments during the month of March on all of these. So they're a month behind or two.
So we're in good shape with our loan funds and receivables. on page, I guess that's it. It's treasurer's report. I would make a motion to accept as presented.
Any second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thanks, Rob.
Okay, so we had an overview committee hearing. The major topic was talking about, I guess for lack of better, refinancing of the Mr. Rick's Bakery for very, very short term. They're facing some significant pressures with some of the new rules in New York State, where they became a little tardy. I think they were up to 4 months behind at one point. They've asked for 9 months of interest only. Yes, 9 months of interest only, which would include the 4 that they were past due. That small amount of additional cash flow for the organization was really critical for them to maintain and, as they indicate, hire some additional people. They're coming into a busier time. Our loan review committee looked at it. We felt it was fairly low risk. It's an important small business to the community. They're trying to hire people but don't have the cash flow to do it, so they're kind of a hidden success story. And the cash flows are important. And again, I stressed that a lot of their issues are some of the rules that New York State has imposed upon them from the beginning of the year that are causing them with this cash flow crunch. So our committee did recommend for the full board to review the resolution that's in your packet here, to consider the 9 months interest only. The maturity dates of both of their loans would be extended to corresponding amounts. So they'd be basically just additional interest we would collect out the business in the short term, and we're no further off at the end.
I'll move the resolution.
But you want to do the resolution?
Yeah, I think, so on the resolution, it's 04.04.2019.01. Resolution for authorizing the modification to the micro enterprise loan to Mr. Rick's Bakery. Do we need to read all this then, Don, or just can I have a motion?
Yes, the loan review committee spent quite a bit of time reviewing it all and recommended it, so I think
Basically, we're shifting the interest only from December 1, 2018 to August 1, 2019. And again, extending maturity dates for the loans for corresponding amount of time as well.
Paul Alberry, who is the owner, has been going through some significant health problems related to all the things that, added to all the things that Rob outlined. It's been a tough haul for him, and hopeful to come out of it, so.
I'll second it if it wasn't seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any further discussion?
Are they in a position, did Alteri's ceasing of operations provide opportunity for Rick's Bakery? Is there market share there?
Opportunities and challenges. Alteri's is much more a commercial bakery, and so it's been looked at. Paul has been looking at it. Part of the question is, will his son be willing to take over the business and expand it? It would require quite a bit of additional capital. They'd have to buy some commercial bakery equipment and so on, but clearly there is a potential opportunity. A lot of the product that Alteri's manufactured maybe baked, I guess, is now coming from places as far away as Chicago. And so there remains to be, in my view, an opportunity. We're trying to bring that's another series of jobs, trying to bring them back into the community here. You've seen people looking at brands, for example, Spaziani's, which was another famous local brand for years. That carries some weight. What we're trying to do now is figure out how to bring those back into the community and employ some local people to get that done. We have a couple of ideas. There is a potential at the moment that we're working on that may address that. Exactly how Paul Alberry and his family will fit in this, I'm not exactly sure.
Yeah, I think the concern we have is who's gonna take over
Yeah.
or take the ball and
Yeah.
run with it, really. I think there's probably opportunity, but
That's exactly.
are the family members interested in doing that?
Yeah. Well, it's a tough business. I mean, you know, first of all, you know, you're up at 2 o'clock in the morning or whatever it is to start. There's a lot to it.
Okay, moving on, unfinished business, above reality.
Yes, I'd like to talk just a minute about Bill Gaudette. I think you've seen, and I don't think it's in the,
There's a small.
yes, there is, isn't there, okay. Okay, we can address that a little bit later if you want to, but we've had some changes in our lending documents, or potential changes in our lending documents for Bill's above reality complex. And sorry, I looked at the agenda and didn't realize that it was placed on there. So we can either deal with it now, John, or now that I can get my foot out of my mouth about it, however you wanna.
Do we have to take action on anything?
Yeah, we have, and Lyle's been active in this, we've been coinciding our activities with the Watertown Trust. And they recently realized that Bill is unable to get insurance, which was personal insurance, which was one of the caveats that the loan was based on, one of the contingencies. Bill was wounded, as I understand it, was wounded in activities when he was in the Army, and he's now unable to get this insurance. And so, after review, the trust has recommended, and their board approved, removing that aspect and just simply taking mortgages and some of the other things to collateralize the loan. They've asked us to participate at that level. We're recommending that you consider doing that. I think all of you have seen all this.
And I think just one important thing, I generally agreed to skip the loan review, because this would have gone back, to put it in front of the full
Correct.
board today, because for expedience, rather than waiting a whole another month to basically agree with the trust or have further discussion.
Are we gonna require a resolution?
The money's already out there on unsecured
Correct.
loans, so
Does this
this.
require a resolution?
Yeah,
So we really
I think
can't
just
do anything.
amend the resolution. I didn't draft a resolution, but I think we could, if you.
I think your minutes, meeting minutes will suffice.
Okay.
I know I personally suggested.
So there's
we
no
could dis-
program for injured soldiers coming home to obtain life insurance for a federal government. I just find that appalling. I'll move that we approve the modifications of the loan.
Follow the Watertown Trust's board recommendation. I would second that.
If, as Paul says, frankly, if that is true, I find it appalling as well.
There's probably,
I agree about
he's
that.
probably got some government life insurance, but those could be assigned as security for.
Gotcha.
That's my guess.
Right.
It's different than the key man that we were requiring.
Just as a quick, well, I guess you have to approve the motion
Yeah.
before we have this.
All in favor of the motion to amend the, I guess it's,
About that loan
the
document.
loan document for, it's the virtual sports complex?
All reality.
Yeah. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I had one question, Lyle. You don't see any significant change in our, what I'll call our risk or anything with regards to this?
No,
this change?
no.
That's what I got out of all the emails.
Yeah, I guess I'm not ready to predict his death, so I don't think so.
No, I'm not asking,
Yeah.
I mean, because that's what this was, is it
Yes.
really is, it's really not a collateral until.
No, he is the key individual.
Correct.
He runs it, he services, and so on, so logically, we would have required that.
It looks like there's a collateral mortgage on his home.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's what the security.
The key collateral components in there, and Joe brought up a good point, the money's already been dispersed, so we really
Of course,
need to
we
actually get this
collateralize.
collateralized and closed properly, so that we actually have documents.
What was the amount of insurance that?
Well, it would have been equal to the amount of the loan, $80,000, that I believe it's 40 in 40, and, so.
Okay, any other discussion? Report on business complex, Watertown International.
Yeah, if you've driven by, actually, I can send you some pictures, but the county and, we had a logger out there doing some clearing work to get ready for the county to be able to lay the roads. So we got the tree clearing that needed to be done before the end of March because of the bats, that's been done. The logger's been in there, chipped it, gotten everything out of there, so, there's some good areas cleared there to make way for the county. You see the county, they've got some, fill material out there and other stuff stockpiled, and we'll be working on getting that road base put through us for the summer.
That's all they hate for.
I think that's for preventing runoff from that big sand pile, you know, it's like, kind of comply with runoff, probably DEC requirement. And then, as part of the requirement for the engineering services out there for our contract with them, we currently, our liability, coverage has up to $2 million per occurrence. Their contract requires $5 million. Actually, Lyle, talking to our insurance agent, and you talked to Don later as well, we agreed that it probably makes sense to have that a little bit higher, particularly with the construction activity going on out there. So it'll cost us another $800 or so for the balance of this year, and then another $1,600 to add, to go from $2 million to $5 million for next year to keep it up there, so we'll be proceeding with that.
Please do that in form of access and liability.
Yeah.
Okay.
I had a couple things that probably fall under unfinished business. I couldn't tell from the balance sheet, did we refund the money yet for the Apex?
No.
Oh.
We still have one additional, bill
I
coming
know you were
on
waiting
that,
on
yeah,
some charges to levy, and then send a letter and say, here.
yes.
Okay. This kind of figured was the case. One other, and I don't think we're ready to talk about it today, but I did ask a question once, I know Joe's just getting back, what our risk, if any, might be for this autumn bridge pilot. And
Fair question.
I don't think there's any data yet, so, and if it has to be executive committee, that's fine, but I just wanted to
I
ask
think
a
if
question.
we wanna talk about it, since we've been served, we should do it in executive
Okay,
session.
I just didn't know, you're just getting back, that you even had the ability to talk about it.
I can talk about it. I'm a lawyer, I can talk.
I don't wanna extend the meeting, so if it's something if that can wait, or if you.
I had a couple of questions, I didn't know if they were executive session, I had asked a question, and if we gotta go to executive, do our documents, and Don and I have talked about it a couple times, having an indemnification clause. And if so, is that something we need to check on?
I wasn't involved in that transaction, so I need to look at the documents. But generally speaking, the project agreement, which is the lease agreement, I believe has indemnification provision, but I have to review it.
I have a copy of it here, John.
Okay.
Would it be fair to wait an additional period of time, we talk about it next month, or is there something substantive that we can actually talk about this?
Well, I think that was my question for Joe, is there a need to go into executive session?
I don't wanna waste people's time if there's nothing substantive to
If
talk
we're gonna
about.
talk about the pending litigation, we would need to go to executive
Yeah.
session, so. And if you wanna talk about what impact it has on the agency, we should do that in executive.
Yeah, that was my only question, it's not about the lawsuit, it's just do we have any risk with really the general macro question.
I think, Joe, we spent a little time talking about this yesterday. The process is still underway. The suit, the activity.
I'm happy to wait,
so-
I just don't wanna, I definitely don't wanna extend the meeting,
Right.
to sort of,
I guess,
say we'll talk about more next week, or next month, or whatever.
I think we probably will have more to talk about if, for some reason, there should be some requirement to do something atypical. We could
Well, I think it'd be
certainly
beneficial if
convene a
Joe
special
could get
meeting.
a chance to review the documents and then
I'll,
have.
I'll supply Joe with a copy of the
And I know there's a
lease
level of
agreements.
awareness, because it's a significant activity that may or may not impact us in any particular way, so.
Typically, a PDA covers that kind of stuff, not the pilot.
I'm happy to delay it, it's just, it's been flagged, we'll admit it, and it can come up when it comes up.
Okay,
That was it.
Yes, I'm not really sure, from my perspective, what our exposure might or might not be for that action.
think we have to see what the impact of the court decisions are. You know, our responsibility is to essentially accept pilot payments and then distribute those. And I don't want to simplify it, but basically that's our responsibility. There's a good Samaritan type of activity that we do. I mean, we're the conduit in many ways to try to develop our community, but the court may find something. We believe, I personally believe, it is not a question of what's going on in Watertown, but something that relates to the broader issue about what Morgan has done over time. So how that impacts what we have done here so far are, just for information, they have made their pilot payments on time. They've been good stewards. The report we get from tenants is excellent. The Army thinks it's one of the better housing projects we have in the community. So overall, from our local perspective, it's a good project, remains so. That doesn't mean that there's something well above it. I think he's got 33,000 units across the New York State. So it's not just our
And
little
for
local.
clarity, my only concern is, will the pilot payments stop being made? If there's some extraordinary assets are frozen for a period of time, that was my only concern. All the other stuff is really, that's just my only concern.
We're entitled to take pilot payments because we are in the chain of title
Mhm.
under the lease-leaseback.
Okay.
And that's also why we're included as a defendant in the lawsuit, because we had to also participate in the mortgage
Mhm.
on a non-recourse basis,
Okay.
so.
That was my only concern, just for clarity. I mean, all the other
Yeah.
legalities of, I know we're not party to things that may or may not have occurred. It's just about, is there a chance we stop getting that pilot payment on a timely matter?
One thing that Joe is going to do, and I think this is easy to say, Joe, that, you know, we're going to make sure by legal request that the court keeps us fully engaged in the correspondence that's going on. Perfect.
What we'll do is just simply file what's called a notice of appearance, so that we've appeared.
And keep the revenue streams full.
But along that line, Robbie, probably an equal concern would be, I mean, there is the Development Authority administering there was some loan financing to those projects through state and regional funds that, you know, they'd probably be concerned about the same thing, whether those continue.
It's only financial. That's the only concern that I am really raising. All the other stuff is between other parties.
All right, under new business, we have a couple of new appointees for the
Jail licenses.
Ed Waldrop here.
It's been commuted. It's not life anymore.
You're terrible.
It's an ankle bracelet.
And also Dave Converse for another 4-year term. And because Dave's not here, he will be chairman for another 4 years.
Well said.
So,
Yeah,
Well,
he's a
I
great-
will say though, that just some conversations that you shared with me is, there is a change going on, a mindset change, I think. Bill, maybe you know better, but and to me, the mindset change is we're deviating from maybe past policies or procedures where just because you're on the IDA board doesn't mean you're gonna be there till you retire, kind of a thing, which in the past, it's kind of, I mean, I look at the Bill Fulkersons and
Term limits.
you know, yeah, and they were almost inevitable, you know, if there wasn't any issues. But there was always people retiring or getting off, but now it's a 4-year term and up for reappointment and be evaluated every 4 years. And I'm not so sure, but what they might want new people, the mindset is maybe put fresh faces on from the legislative body. Don't assume because you're there that you always will be there, kind of thing. Is that a fair assessment? Is there a change of mode from the legislators a little bit as far as board appointments?
I can't say there's a whole feeling for the board, but there's a different mindset there.
Okay.
Was it 4 or 5 years, the appointment?
4.
It's 4, the letter was?
Typically, it's 5.
I believe when I was.
They decide whatever they wanna decide, so.
So it's not.
Any new appointments, it was
Just
definitely term.
Just for the board's background, we talked with county officials about this 2 or 3 years ago, and we actually agreed with the notion that a term limit of some type with the possibility of extending that if they wish to serve further, was it really in the best interest of the organization. And the reason for that was, people these days, busy people who we need to ingratiate in this organization, can only commit for so long. And if we find those terms are unlimited, they're apt not to want to serve. So there was kind of general agreement with county officials and this organization that term limits would be added to.
And yet, at any time in those 4-year periods, you're still at the discretion of the county board of legislators, right? They can request that you replace you at any time.
Well, they could be nasty if they want to,
Yeah.
and they more often are.
No. Present company excluded.
Okay, we wanna move on to the resolution for the re-energy, amending the trust addendum? or-
Yeah, this is, you've seen a lot of documentation on this, I'm sure. It would be described as a minor change, and I'm gonna ask Joe just to weigh in on this, but to my own way of thinking, after a long discussion about it, it's a no-brainer. But Joe, go ahead.
It's simply a mechanism to allow re-energy quicker access to revenues to use for working capital. It has zero impact on the IDA, because we're the pass-through on it. The critical thing is the bondholders have approved the modification, so the risk to us is basically zero.
And one question, and, well, actually 2 questions. On the resolution that's before us, is it important to actually add in second supplemental indenture dated for 1/19, so we actually, there's a resolution, it just generically states the second supplemental indenture, but I think the one that's packaged to us is dated, I wanna say after 4/1 or something like that. Do we actually put the date, or is it unimportant?
I don't think it's very important.
Okay, if it's not important, no big deal. The second question regarding to that is there is a second amendment to amended and restated leaseback agreement. Do we need a resolution for this, because it's not covered in the second supplemental? There were 2 things that were sent to us late, like yesterday. Does this need
You
a
got them at
resolution?
4 o'clock, right?
Yeah, we need to approve both
Okay.
the amendment to the indenture and the.
Should they be separate resolutions? Because this whereas, like, regurgitates what we're approving in the indenture, the hell they call it, indenture.
Indenture.
And then the other one's the lease back, which is totally different language, so do we need a second
I would
resolution?
just approve it by motion.
Added in, okay, okay. I just wanted to make sure that this didn't get lost, because it does appear to be totally separate language. But it's our own, I read this is our own internal paperwork, the leaseback agreement, so it's our own policies and procedures we're modifying?
Well, yeah, you're amending the leaseback in conjunction with the amendment to the.
Yeah, I realize you go together, so you're okay,
But
so.
those are our,
Okay, I just wanted to ask
I'm
the
okay
proper
with it.
procedure of
I'm okay
how to
with
get
it.
both of them.
Just adopting it by motion.
Because one was seeming to be sort of silent.
So,
And this literally came in at what, 3 o'clock yesterday afternoon or something?
I don't know if I've read that one. What I got here is what's on the thing here, is that it?
Yeah, well, this came in by email yesterday, but if it's in our board, I don't know if it's in our board packet, but I personally,
because-
I wouldn't feel good about doing this without addressing this.
By the time I had gotten it, it was time for me to leave for our friends at the Cherry Tree Inn. I never had, other than to send it to the board.
Yeah.
I didn't do anything else with it. I'm not even sure I copied it.
No.
Is it fair for Joe to give us the footnote version for those who haven't read the email, what this is, or do you want that? It's literally approved, it's modifying second fighting.
It's modifying that section to reflect the change.
Reflect the change that you're approving in the other one.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just, I figured
That's all
it
it
needed
is.
a separate resolution or a motion.
Just a motion.
Okay. You want to read it?
One document simply follows you out, if you approve one, it changes to the second. That's basically what happens.
I'd be okay with that, but this resolution.
Okay, I did read
mention
this.
that. That's my
This
only
is at
concern, is that it
5%?
just happens behind the scenes automatically and
You had all
transparency.
these attorneys from Re-Energy and all the bond councils and everybody looking at it, but I didn't get it till.
Well, I mean, I'm not blaming anybody, I'm just saying we're having a board meeting and that's kind of the dangling piece that's over.
So we're gonna do the initial resolution, and then we're gonna do,
Just,
Approval?
just a
Just a
motion to
motion.
approve the
Oh,
amendment to the lease.
That's literally written as a resolution, almost as it is anyway.
The resolution changes that second document, and that's the, you know, there's a lineage there, so, passing the resolution and then by motion, the amendment to that second.
I'll move the resolution before us, 4/4/2019
That'll make it easy.
okay. Second,
I'll second it.
all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, carried, and then we need to make a motion on this one as well?
I'll move to amend the
lease
lease
back.
back, whatever it says across the top, if you want to read it.
Second, okay, we have a motion to second amendment to amended and restated leaseback agreement.
Who was second?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Like I say, any further discussion? Okay, so we've got concentrics then?
Yeah, for the board's information, Billy Solari, Justin Keegan, who is the facilities manager for Concentrics, the architects from Albertine and Courier and I walked the property at Concentrics for a couple of hours yesterday, looking at some issues that we had down there. I've sent you, board members, some of the pictures and some of the evidence to support what I'm about to ask you to do, and that is to allow the agency to go to bid through Albertine Courier and correct some major structural problems we have at the Concentrics building, which of course is ours. There are a number of issues to talk about. Basically, the most egregious issue is the concrete deck, which is on the northern portion of the building at the opposite side from Arsenal Street. That deck, running almost the entire length of the building, has decayed to a point where it has become unsafe. And it was largely, I believe personally, we need to do some more investigation, but it was probably precipitated by the people who did the snow removal. Instead of using light equipment on the deck, they used a bobcat, which is a reasonably heavy piece of equipment. And when they got up on the deck, they would spin the bobcat around, and you know how bobcats work, the tires dig in. Eventually, it has caused the concrete to break up. So there is that piece that is part of the egress of the building. It's a safety issue. Clearly, it has to be taken care of. We can't leave it like that. There is some other corresponding issues that the winter has exacerbated, but it's going to have to be resolved. It includes 2 or 3 blocks, large blocks of sidewalk. It includes water infiltration on some of the side issues on the building. We've had this problem before. For those of you who've been on the board a while, you've heard us talk about this. The surface of the building on the exterior surfaces tend to separate a little bit, and water gets down in behind them. It freezes and thaws, and things begin to fall apart. Anyway, walking down in the bowels of the building yesterday, we discovered that water is now beginning to infiltrate into areas that we don't put water in, including electric and all that kind of stuff. So we've got some issues to resolve there. I frankly, at the moment, we're going to have to put them to bid through Albertine, but I would guess we're probably talking on the range of $80,000, perhaps a little bit
The
more.
cost estimates are actually in the packet.
I'm sorry?
The cost estimates are actually in the
Well,
packet.
there's actually more than that.
Okay, so this isn't
No,
complete then?
that was the original estimate with respect to the
deck.
to the deck, but there's a lot more there.
Is this, so there's two proposals, one like replacing the handrail and one using
Yeah.
existing or something?
Yeah, we could do this on a Band-Aid type approach, and that is only going to forestall the problem. And in my view, after walking it yesterday, it will become a major issue once again within a year or two if we don't do something to completely correct the problem. The deck itself has, for example, a steel underlayment. That underlayment has rusted to a point where we're actually seeing the underlayment falling apart. So we're gonna have to replace that. We could spend $20,000-$30,000 and then have to repeat that 3 years from now, or whatever the number is. So,
We do have a little over $1 million in capital reserves, so it's not as if the funds are not there.
no,
It's just a matter of identifying, you asking us to approve first the engineering expenses for Albertini Courier to scope out the work, and then go out for bid, and then we approve the bids as they come in, or
no,
what?
probably,
what action
this
do
is,
we-
at the moment, more informational, Ron,
Okay.
because, at some point, we're gonna get those things back, and I would come back to the board with specifics that we've learned about the costs associated with it.
Now, does any of this come under their insurance, whoever did this?
Well, we're doing some investigation about that. I got from Concentrix when we were meeting with Justin yesterday. I've got some of the contracts that are related. Concentrix has a management company who then contracts with a local service provider. And it's the local service provider who did not follow instructions. We had met with that service provider 3 years ago and cautioned them not to use heavy equipment on that deck. It was not designed to do that. And they, of course, promised they would not do that, which of course they immediately did. So now when we redo this, we're gonna put bolsters up there. There's going to be no way that heavy equipment can get on there in the first place. And secondly, the winter, for example, there's a tunnel that goes from the top portion of the parking lot down to the next level in the underground area. It blew the glass out of the tunnel, so that's gotta be replaced. There's some walls behind the generator that needs to be. All of these things are really important structural repairs that really
This
need
piece
to
of
be
the
done.
building is quite old, I'm guessing.
Well, it's at a point where we're gonna have to continue to do these things, which is why we originally set up the capital reserve fund to begin with. And, knowing we're gonna have to do this, there's probably more ahead. We've done some things fairly recently, but it's time to redo them again. And it will obviously increase the value of the building. So anyway, when we get this all identified and Albertine heard a number of different areas that I really think we need and asked them to include in the repairs. When we get those numbers, I'll then share that with the board. It typically has been left to me, but I want you guys to know if we're gonna spend $80, $90, $100,000 on this building, that we're preparing to do that and get your authorization.
I mean,
And
is
My
there any?
question is, should we approve the engineering expense to put together the quotes, and then we have to review the quotes when they come in anyway?
You can do that if you
Policies.
want, Rob. I mean, I'll leave that to you, but I think it would be under my discretion.
Okay. I don't know how this all works, like access to the capital reserve. I mean, we talked about approving procurement of snow plowing services for 15 or 20,000, so I don't know why this is not following. I don't understand the procedure, so that's why I'm asking if it doesn't require board action, believe me, we don't need to put our noses where they don't belong.
Right, well, no, I'm just kind of going what's happened in the
Okay.
past. It would be under my responsibility to make sure that building doesn't fall apart.
No,
And so-
I agree, I just didn't know if you
Yeah.
needed some additional.
But I want you guys to be aware of it and approve it, because I think you need to know that we're watching the condition of this building. It's a valuable asset for this agency, and you need to understand what the issues are that we face, because it'll come up again. I mean, these things come up. And by the way, parenthetically, I think it's important that we make sure that building is in the best condition we can, because you know what's been going on with Concentrix recently about their downsizing. And I don't want to give them any further excuse for downsizing further. We wanna make sure that that building is in good condition so we can make.
So, is there any benefit to having somebody do an evaluation of the building, Don, for our benefit to say?
Appraisal type of thing?
No, more just to look at the overall condition of the building, say in 5 years, you're probably gonna be putting a roof on, in 10 years, you're gonna be putting this in, a new heating system, so we have an
Yes,
understanding of how much
yeah.
money we're gonna be talking about,
Yeah,
say in a 10-year program or 10-year time span.
I think that's a good suggestion. We kind of do that informally, you know, Billy, you know, we use Billy's group to maintain that building. And he is constantly coming in the office and saying, you know, we got a cracked sidewalk here, we got this and that. But to your point, there are some structural things. I don't know, you know, we did a substantial upgrade in the heat and air conditioning recently, a couple of years ago. But that's gonna have to be redone again. There's some other things. So yes, to your point, it probably, as long as Aberdeen is doing an evaluation, it probably makes sense for them to.
But as I recall, when we did the last major expenditure we did, we had to do refacing, which was major masonry work. And that whole evaluation of that building was done at that time, was
Yes,
it
it
not,
was.
as I recall?
Yes, it
So
was.
we're only a few years away from that, knowing where we are with that building.
Well, it's not like we've not done this before, but to John's point, I think it's probably time that we looked at that. You know, remember, we repaired the roof, we didn't replace it, and that gave us another I think it was 5 years of life on the roof itself. Well, sooner or later, and that's the biggie, that's the one that we're setting up as much money as we are.
rolled rubber.
Yeah, it's I forgot what we call it, but yes.
Ballast
it's a-
roof is
yeah.
stone on there?
That would be a big project. It would be 300 plus, probably, maybe 400,000. There's a lot of square feet up there. So, and that's gonna have to be redone. And the problem is, I mean, when you do some of these things, but the weather comes back and 3 years later, you gotta redo them. You know, the size that we're seeing this water infiltration. They did a great job of repairing it, but eventually, the things that used as expansion joints begin to contract, and when those contract, they leave a little room for water to get in there, and then things go to hell, but,
This whole deck, from the pictures I see, is, the operator, the skid steer is getting blamed for, the blame is coming on that, but the root cause of all that is salt and weather. I mean, the steel.
you can't deny
Well,
it.
the steel underneath, when
Yeah.
you expand and pop, you get a crack, you get
Yeah.
salt in there, and then you get water.
Heavy equipment, I expect.
Heavy equipment doesn't help.
Right.
But it may not.
That's
be the
40
underlying
years.
cause.
The pictures, it's 40 years of salt and corrosion and weather exposure.
And when Albertine and Courier does look at this, and I'm sure they'll look at some of the new engineered materials, but I wouldn't put steel back up there. Or
Well,
galvanized
we are gonna
necessarily.
take.
There's other materials that will resist our weather better and salt and things of that nature.
We're gonna change the coating, you know, we did a coating on the original concrete deck. That coating will be probably changed to a different, there's also some
And
safety issues.
Salt resistant concretes now, there's all sorts of things, it's basically a topping.
Yeah.
But there's lots of things that they can do.
There's things you can mix with the concrete now that make
Correct.
it harder, and so, you know, we'll be looking at those things. But there's also some safety issues, you know, when we walked it, I looked and there was a, you know, loading dock, was set up, without guards. You could literally walk off the loading dock and break your arm, easily. And so, while we're putting up some of these new, stanchions or railings, we're gonna add that to the mix and get them done while they're rolling.
To John's point, I mean, there are resources within the county, have a code inspector come in and point out areas that we should make improvements.
Well,
We are the insurer of the building, correct?
well, we have to maintain, you know, absolutely, you know, safety issues and all that based on the insurance. Concentric, of course, has insurance, and then we were also named, but the city's also involved. We had 2 individuals fall on city property. We get notified and engaged in that in some way. It's not our direct responsibility. But, you know, that building has some maintenance things. We have to deal with it on an almost daily basis. We think it's a good asset, and we want to keep it that way.
So do we need to take any action as far as
Not at the moment, it was pretty informational, John, to, you know, kind of keep you guys up to speed, let you know. Albertine should have some numbers here for us pretty quickly on site thing, and maybe in a month. The reason for that is we want to get started on this, if you're willing, you know, in late summer, if not late spring, so that we can get it all done before winter.
So we don't need to have a motion to allow staff to engage Auburn Tree and Interior in this?
I don't think so. Well, it's entirely your call. It falls under, quote, my responsibility,
Okay.
so I think we need to do it, so this was really mainly information. If you want to authorize me to do it, I'm fine with that too, however you guys want me to proceed.
That whole deck has gotta be replaced, torn, demoed, and replaced.
It does.
Is there some, are there other design options that could eliminate that structure to something different other than?
Well, we
is there a
talked
way to
about that.
reconfigure that?
We talked about that, but because it's a safety issue, it's an egress in the event of fire and that kind of stuff. It has to be so wide, it has to be so, you know, it has to be people-friendly, it has to be smooth, it has to be, you know, blah, blah, blah. So we're fairly limited on how that can be done. There may be some other things. Albertine has promised to look at all these issues to see if there's an update, you know.
That would be my challenge to them and their design, is to figure out a way around that, for them to have something other than that.
Right. We'll ask, and maybe there's some things we can do to make it work in town.
Stairs don't agree.
Yeah.
Okay, anything more on that then?
That's it.
Joe, anything else from council? Anything else for the group? A motion adjourned,
So moved.
second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?